Welcome back, boys and girls, to Deep Thoughts Garage Edition. It's raining outside, and I'm sitting in the office. I'm thinking, all right, let's get out there and make an episode. So I thought we'd do a doozy today, a good one. And I think it's fun because some of you will have not heard of this conspiracy, and some of you will have been following it a lot. I was chatting with one of the listeners last night, and he asked me the question. He's like, do you think that JFK Jr is alive? And for those of you who are not familiar with this conspiracy, as crazy as it sounds, it's fairly plausible. So in the late 90s, JFK Jr., the son of John F. Kennedy, has to have the same name to go Jr., right? He's getting more popular. He came out with a magazine called George. There is some discrepancies on why he called it George. He would often have George Washington covers, people dressed like George Washington, actors, actresses, hot models, whatever. Towards the end, there was a notion that he was calling it George because he knew that George Herbert Walker Bush participated in his father's death. And the entire thing was to laser in eventually and uncover the fact that that was the case. Now, we know that George Herbert Walker Bush was involved with the death of JFK for a couple reasons. One, we have a picture of him on the book depository steps, just looking around. Two, at President Ford's funeral, he usurped the eulogy. You know, the last words to talk about how we shouldn't entertain wild conspiracy theories as it related to JFK's death. I mean, talk about an old fucker with some serious paranoia. You know, if this summer's a little warmer, it's because some of the Bushes are down there heating the fucking joint up. So it gets towards the end of the 90s, and he's finally considering stepping into political office and going for the Senate for the New York region. But there was a problem. Hillary Clinton has had this dream to be the president of the United States, and she needed to establish herself politically. And I don't know what it is. I'm going to assume that the state of New York is one of the easiest states to throw an election in. Probably California next. So her only way of buying her fucking seat is through the state of New York. But here comes JFK Jr., handsome, smart. And again, if you hear rumors otherwise, you need to know you're probably sucking on the extremities of some deep state revisionistic history thing. The people who make all these documentaries telling you that Mark Zuckerberg's a fucking genius, but Steve Jobs was a complete asshole. All right? So the people who can't code, like Bill Gates can't code, Mark Zuckerberg could probably barely code. They're the Einsteins, right? Einstein was a complete fucking idiot. So it just goes on and on and on. They flip everything. So the morons are the geniuses, and the geniuses are the heretics. I say it because I heard someone say, well, I heard he wasn't very smart. Really? Have you ever heard him talk in public? Just go rewind all the speeches. And then go watch Whitney Houston on Johnny Carson show or the Arsenio Hall show, and you'll see a definite difference in fucking intelligence, okay? But the Kennedy family's got an interesting thing about them, right? They've had two of their own murdered, and Teddy was most likely framed. I was not a big fan of this guy, so me saying he was framed is not trying to dig the guy out of him being a complete douche of the deep state eventually, because he was. The rumor is that he's cheating on his wife, and this girl comes home. This is for Teddy Kennedy. She's going home. They push her off into a lake, and then they call him up and say, we control your ass. So the reason why he never called and the reason why he looks like a big shithead is that it was something that was orchestrated on him to make sure that the last Kennedy, who if murdered again, this lone gunman bullshit is ridiculous. You have Lee Harvey Oswald lone gunman, and you have Sirhan lone gunman. Neither of these dudes had anything to do with putting a bullet in a Kennedy. Sirhan was actually there, but he was fucking MK'd out of his mind, shooting at the ceiling as the hotel manager in the kitchen was slamming his hand against an aluminum table. Robert Kennedy was shot 3 inches from the back of his right ear by a rent-a-cop. But all that was over by 1968. I forgot exactly when the Ted Kennedy girlfriend issue happened. She died. He was committing adultery. So you can judge him for that if you want. But nearly 30 years later, 70s, 80s, and 90s, JFK Jr. is a grown man, very well integrated into the New York lifestyle and generally the constituents of his father and his uncle. And here comes word. Hillary Clinton's going to kill you. She works for them, you don't. In fact, your family has traditionally not worked for them, and you're trying to resurrect this banner your father has of sticking it to the deep state. So in potentially the first time in American history, maybe even world history for a long time, now executives do this every once in a while, this dude arranges a flight. He's a pilot. JFK Jr. was a pilot, owned a plane. But now he had a couple regiments every time he flew. One, he always flew with his teacher as a co-pilot. Two, he always brought his dog when he traveled on family vacations. So their family has this joint up in Martha's Vineyard, and every time he goes there, he takes his little dog with him. It's not a little dog, it's a dog. And he takes his wife, of course, and on this particular occasion, he took a sister-in-law. Except this particular flight was different. One, JFK had a cast on his foot, all the way up to his knee. You can't fly a plane with the cast on your foot because you couldn't even feel the fucking thing. You couldn't feel a pedal. You used pedals to turn left and right in a plane. He also didn't bring his dog, and he didn't bring his co-pilot/teacher. Just all of a sudden, with the cast on his foot, he feels extra secure, doesn't need any extra assistance. Yeah, that's starting to make a lot of sense, doesn't it? Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton wants you murdered because Hillary was taught in the 80s and 90s, if someone is in your way, kill them. Arkanside them. The true death toll of the Clinton family, I would imagine, matches any world dictator who has, like Saddam Hussein, that had all those guys dragged out of the room and murdered. It's sort of like that in the modern era. I mean, that's just based on a bunch of information coming out of Arkansas recently. All these people that got in their circle and got their heads blown off. I mean, horrific deaths. If this was anything normal and not a political family, there would be FBI investigations into serial murders. Why are there a bunch of people dying in this particular area of the world without any cause of death? I mean, without any motive and who did it and that kind of thing. They're unsolved mysteries, all of them. But on July 16th, 1999, JFK Jr. dies in a plane crash in the official news. Okay. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there was definitely some conspiracies around the fact that it looked like the plane, the first fisherman that found the plane said that it most certainly was exploded from the inside, that the burn marks were all on the inside of the plane and the outside was clean as a whistle. Then you see different pictures, like I've seen that plane on a video being dragged onto a dock, and it's all in pieces, sort of. And then I see pictures later on of them dragging somebody, looked like a male figure, out of the top of the plane. There's discrepancies with the paint job on the side of the plane that took off versus the one that's on the bottom of the ocean. The other thing is that when a plane does hit the ocean, it is a bit like hitting a cement wall. I mean, it tears the shit out of anything. Drop a car out of the sky into the ocean, and when you find it, it'll be pancaked pretty good because the ocean's not going to get out of the way of the car in real time, which causes resistance, which causes energy transfers, which causes, an impact. I didn't see a plane. The one where they're dragging his body out of the bottom of the ocean, I didn't see a plane look like it had landed in the water. So why on earth do people think this dude's still alive? That's where it gets interesting. So fast forward 18 years. There's this dude who keeps showing up behind Trump at Trump rallies. And he sort of changes. He calls himself Vincent Fusca, which I believe means something like conquering darkness. And he looks a little odd. He looks a little strange. Now, JFK Jr. was, by all means, a handsome man. He's like a handsome dude where dude's like, that dude's good looking, man. So Vincent Fusca, I don't know. He looks like he's definitely in some ridiculous disguise, whoever this dude is. And the going theory is that there is a guy named Vincent Fusca. He lives in the Philadelphia area. He was filmed with a Trump truck right before the election was complete, and he was, rah-rahing for Trump, and of course Trump won. But that guy's sort of got a balding spot on his head. He looks kind of heavy in the face, and doesn't sound like JFK Jr. But some people think that this guy, every once in a while, will trade places with JFK Jr. Like JFK Jr. will dress up like that guy, put this fake Gene Simmons hair on, put a black top hat on, or whatever this hat, not top hat, but a hat on. And then he definitely seems like he paints a fake beard on his face. I mean, some of these beards look ridiculously bad. The original Fusca he's fairly in shape, but the other one looks like he's really in shape. People have studied his face, and some people think that Fusca is almost 80% JFK Jr. most of the time in major disguise. And they're trying to measure teeth and the whole eyes, nose, mouth, face recognition. They study his sort of idle positions when he's standing against a wall, and they look how he covers his one hand over another, which is a very JFK Jr. thing to do. But I think a lot of people do that from time to time. But that's not it. That dude is not the reason we believe that JFK Jr. is alive at all. The reason why we believe JFK Jr. is alive is because of his wife. His wife appears to be next to this dude, whether that guy be JFK Jr. or the other dude to the right of him is a woman that looks exactly like his wife. And you might say, well, that's just because there's doppelgangers everywhere. People look like people. Okay. Well, I've made quite a bit of money in my lifetime drawing people's faces, painting people's faces. And I will tell you that pound for pound, this woman's, the real JFK spouse, has an extremely unique set of features. Her nose is very, very unique. And and out of all the faces I've ever drawn in my lifetime, I've never drawn her nose unless I was drawing like Bob Hope's nose. It's a very sweeping, distinct nose. I don't know where her bloodline's from. She kind of looks Norwegian or Dutch to me. She has a smile that's gigantic. She smiles well. And she just has a general bone structure to her face. In addition, she's always wearing this studded hat. It's like a baseball cap with all kinds of rhinestones on it. It's been bedazzled. And one of the most amazing things is that JFK Jr. had given his wife an Eiffel Tower ring, which, from what I can tell, looks like it has a giant ruby in it. And for those of you who don't know, rubies can be more expensive than diamonds. And this woman had that ring on at one of the conventions. So you always have Fusca here, and either right next to him or a couple people over, you have this woman that looks just like his wife. In one of the appearances to his left, you've got a woman that looks like the absolute hybrid of the two of them, who's younger. Looks like she might be in her late 20s, early 30s. Beautiful, dressed just like mom. Has her own star-studded hat. First time I ever saw her, she kept holding the troll button. It's like literally a button you put on your shirt with the little frog head dude. And she keeps holding it, and she looks like she's looking off in the distance at a monitor because her head kept getting clipped in the shot because Trump was further down and she was up in the bleachers. So she kept bending down and showing it and holding it. And if any of you have looked at these 8chan, 4chan boards where the after P guy is number 17, that is a symbol that is all over the posts. Plus that little anonymous guy out there, he's always told us, wait till you find out who's talking to you. It's going to be interesting. But aside from any of that, whether that's real or a LARP or some sort, this dude and his wife's sister seem to be there. There's also a best friend of JFK Jr.'s that died within a year. Relatively handsome guy, very distinct looking face, and the two of them have been, Fusca and this guy have been standing right next to each other, and when you compare the guy with these little round glasses to the best friend, it's a spitting image of him aged up 15, 17 years. Now the sister-in-law, the wife's sister, died supposedly in this plane crash. I believe I am accurate in saying that her son, the sister's son, has been viewed at one of the conventions. Well, why would that be there? You know, this whole family is staunch Democrats. Well, but 2 or 3 people back from that kid is a woman that looks just like her sister, aged, happy. Imagine going into witness protection, and then now you can come out and not only come out in public, but you get to travel with the President of the United States. Kind of cool. But now, what is the connection between JFK Jr. and President Trump? Why is he always showing up at Trump rallies? Well, JFK Jr. and Donald Trump were, I think, can be safely described as best friends, as besties as those two kind of guys can have. They admired each other. Both New Yorkers. I think right after JFK Jr. died, Donald Trump went on Larry King Live and brought a letter that JFK Jr. had written him, and Larry King realized that it was written, I think, on the 18th, 2 days after JFK died. But is that the end of the evidence? Oh, no. Oh, no. That's just the beginning. So again, some people think that this after P Anon, that he is JFK Jr. Now, it seems a little bit of a stretch even with the official story, because whoever this person is appears to be extremely military and part of an intelligence group, and I don't think that JFK Jr. would necessarily spend the next 17 years, 18 years of his life digging that deep into military comms. He may be absolutely involved, but whether or not he is one of them or him, it doesn't really matter, but he's participating, it would seem. But now, when this plane crash occurred, you know how when these kind of accidents occur in the news organizations, they want to get calls in from people, from the Coast Guard, from the NTSB to comment on things. One of the very first people to call in, and I don't remember what network it was this gentleman, I believe, pretending to be part of the Coast Guard, talking about where the plane was, because there seems to be some discrepancies as to where the plane was, and that seems as if there was the real plane was flying to safety and the decoy was being dropped in the ocean. Quite frankly, the only thing that needs to occur is the plane could be put there the night before, and the little repeater box, the little black box, could simply be pushed out the window of the real plane as it flies, and then the real plane can take a turn, and that might account for the fact that the box said, "I felt the plane do this nosedive." That could simply be someone tossing the black box out the window. I've never heard that theorized, but there you go. But this gentleman who calls in, once we rewound the tape and listened to it, sounds exactly like JFK Jr. I mean, remarkably like JFK Jr. And how do we know what JFK Jr. sounded like? Well, there's two types of interactions with JFK Jr. that were recorded. One of the interactions is him in multiple interviews with various, current affairs or some sort of news organization where they sit down in a nice mic'd room and he's talking. But the other common, stock footage that we have of this gentleman is he's out talking at universities, he's giving presentations at conferences, and so then he's on a mic like this, and he's having to raise his voice a little bit because he's outside, and that changes the voice just a little bit. When we rewind the presentations of JFK, and we play it against the guy on the phone call, and just go back and forth between that and the other presentations, you have what appears to be an exact match of a person. And what's interesting about it is that those both come from recordings that are over 18 years old. So 1999, it's like July 16th or 17th, this person's calling in and talking on behalf of the Coast Guard, talking about where everything was. So that's recorded back then. And then we compare it against his speeches in the 90s. And so those recordings are old. So the shenanigans that could be orchestrated today are both quarantined because those are old recordings. We can compare them against, old recordings of people sitting at home, the hoarders that record every single thing and put it on the shelf. Thank God that they do that every once in a while because we can get this exact footage from the past. And then an interesting thing occurred because the radio station, the TV station that actually had this gentleman call in, who sounds a lot like JFK Jr., they re-edited the sequence and republished it without that phone call, as if someone figured it out. Today we have videos on YouTube being created by a gentleman who on Twitter refers to himself as Joe M. Now, whether or not Joe M is the exact voice on the recordings, we don't know. But Joe M owns those videos, as I understand it. And this After P guy, this number 17 dude, when he posts and he wants to update the world on his cause and his movement, he uses Joe M videos. Now, Joe M videos have that voice, and it sounds exactly like the dude in the 90s, JFK Jr. So what are the odds that you have this movement that is anti-deep state, and you have a gentleman whose family was experienced 2 assassinations due to the deep state? His uncle was controlled by the deep state, who randomly dies of a brain tumor. Of course, he drank Diet Coke, and that's one of the things aspartame does to your brain. And I should say the videos are immaculately created. I mean, they are beautiful. The monologues that are written are on point. There's not a single word wasted. The imagery is fantastic. The emotional arcs of the imagery, of the montages that are going on in the background, are phenomenal. And the videos so absolutely cover the conspiracies of this world, from the banking cartels to the instigated wars to the bad medicine to corrupt politicians, child traffickers. If you watch them all, I think you would be hard-pressed to find anything that wasn't covered in his videos in terms of the things that we dislike about the world today. At the same time, he's not sitting there complaining the whole time. He's telling you how they have planned to fix the problem. So Joe M is sitting there on Twitter. He owns the YouTube page that creates these amazing videos. The 17 guy posts all his stuff. But the Joe M videos are talking about the 17 dudes' full objective, full plan of how they're going to do this. Now, some people are skeptical because they've been so awake for so long, they can't imagine the deep state ever falling. They don't see a path to that being possible. And some of that's just, you're so beat down that, you're like the elephant that thinks that you're like an elephant the size of a house that still believes that the rope and the spike in the ground can hold you down, because that's the way it was when you were a little kid. The fun thing about this is that with surveillance, and this is this is a bummer and this is a good thing all at the same time, we have a Fourth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States in America, which is that you are not allowed to be eavesdropped on without a due process and a warrant to do so. But you have to convince a series of judges that you should have your Fourth Amendment suspended because you look like you're up to no good. But when 9/11 occurred and the Patriot Act went on, the Military Commissions Act turned on, it was legal to just do whatever they wanted to. But of course, the bad Five Eyes organizations, which are all centered in New Zealand, by the way, they could do whatever they want and then use it against you. And I'll give you an example of sort of the Wild West nature of the world. In the 90s, when I was in the database industry, we would have folks that would go to Europe every once in a while to negotiate deals, big corporate deals. And on one occasion, this is just me telling you what I was told, so whether or not this is real or not, I've heard this repeated a couple times, and I've repeated this a couple times and had people go, oh yeah, that's what they used to do. But they checked into the hotel, put all their laptops inside the hotel, and then took off to eat dinner in Paris. And the French Secret Service went into the room, raided the computers, downloaded everything, and then when my sales partners, my buddies, went in to negotiate the deal, the other side had all the terms. And they literally knew this, this is as low as we're going to go, this is high as we're going to go. And now the negotiation's screwed up. They can go straight to the low point and get out for scot-free. Now, I'm sure the United States had its own versions of this, but that was the way it used to work. It used to be very spy-oriented. So when we had surveillance going into the Five Eyes and going into the NSA being constrained by FISA courts, meaning you can collect all the data you want, but you can't look at it unless you've got a FISA warrant to look at it. The Five Eyes, they could just tap into any camera in the world and pleasure themselves to videos of your wife taking a shower if she happened to set up her cell phone in the wrong angle. They could do anything they wanted to. They could use the information against you. Think about child trafficking. People. What do criminals do? Criminals case joints, houses and businesses to figure out the best time of day and when the security guards come and go. Now imagine you had a direct route into people's telephones, and the daughter who's 14 years old goes, "Hey mom, when are you going to be home? I'm all alone." "Oh, honey, I'll be there in 2 hours. Your dad's out of town for 2 weeks, so you just hunker down." And now some weird child trafficking guy gets tipped off. Maybe there's some artificial intelligence listening to that kind of statement, and they just show up and pick up your kid, and it's over. Or you're off on vacation in Mexico, and they just kidnap you and blame it on the local Mexicans, and so this poor indigenous group of people are like, "Man, we don't kidnap people," but other people do on their behalf. Maybe not even from the same country. So the NSA started so efficiently grabbing everything. And once they cracked open enough cases and saw enough horrific stuff, especially child trafficking and human trafficking, they had a change of heart about what they're supposed to do with this information. They also found out there was a cabal against the United States of America, that presidents were getting installed to throw America under the bus. Republicans and Democrat presidents were willing to do this. The Bush family does not identify themselves as American citizens. They identify themselves as the 322 skull and bones descendants of German druids from Europe. They see themselves as the uncrowned monarchy of the United States of America. Who knows what they're worth? I would estimate they've got billions and billions, if not a trillion. But they do a good job of kind of staying low. And I think with Granddaddy passing away, Jeb will never be president. Junior's already done it. All their kids seem to be, either girls, and they're sort of into their own world. They've kind of struggled with substance abuse and all kinds of stuff. I just think they're kind of started to turn into a normal American family, to be honest. I don't think we're going to see any problems from that side. But they did their damage. The Clintons are an amazing family because you have the father, Bill Clinton, is a complete rapist. And he's literally celebrated by the satanic Democrats that, again, they're the most racist party ever created in this country. Founders of the KKK, against abolishing slavery, against desegregation, always pulling out the race card constantly because they know how to manipulate that card. They want the Mexican vote, but they call them taco truck voters inside all their internal emails. Walk away, people. Walk away, man. The Clintons also have all these people that disappeared who were in their financial circles in Arkansas. You've got Whitewater problems. You've got Vince Foster, who was going to investigate the Whitewater real estate shenanigans, which I believe were all in Hillary's camp. And he ends up shot in the back of the head, rolled up in a carpet in a park. And you will still have baby boomers saying that he committed suicide. The cognitive dissonance of baby boomers is the most palatable fucking quantum insanity we have ever seen in American history. But the reason why this new movement can succeed is because for the very first time, the President of the United States has everything. And he's backed by generals. And he's backed by intelligence agents who are the most patriotic American citizens, bar none. And so imagine having all the cards, just like this French group that used to come in and raid the computers. What did that do against my partners in the software business? Well, they went in for a negotiation where the other side knew all the terms. Our side didn't know their terms. They cheated. If this truly occurred, then the French Secret Service, I would think, would have broken some sort of ethical law between our country and their country to do this. But I'm sure we were doing the same thing with our operating systems where, we could go into anyone's computer, being Microsoft Windows. But the NSA is fighting crime. The NSA is looking at this going, there is an utter cabal. We just had a president who has the most mysterious identity on planet Earth. The reason why this big college payoff scandal is breaking is that this prince in Saudi Arabia bought the degree for the president of the United States, Barack Obama, old Barry, bought his degree at Harvard, which is why no one ever saw the dude. He was the head of entire committees over there, and these people are like, I never saw him. I got the pamphlet that said he was a Kenyan exchange student. I got that part, but I never met the guy. Elizabeth Warren running around saying she's Native American, and she is not disbarred. She is not thrown out of the Senate. I mean, you talk about an ethics violation. That's an ethics violation to the degree of going to jail. And this fucking broad is going to run for 2020 president. She's for this new Green Deal. We got something wrong with America if Elizabeth Warren can be a free woman. She belongs behind bars. I don't believe she's even formally apologized to the Cherokee Indians, a Native American tribe of which one cannot test one's blood and find out one is part of that tribe. The 1024th blood that she said that she matched with some weird tribe, and I don't mean weird in a bad way, but some obscure tribe, I should say, in Peru. Yeah, I'm sure Elizabeth Warren's family spent a hell of a lot of time in Peru, right? Give me a break. Barack Obama says on an interview that he's a Muslim, and then the liberal, shilly fucking interview person said, "You mean Christian?" "Yeah, I mean Christian." "Oh, do you make those mistakes?" Because I don't make those mistakes. I never say I'm a Muslim and then, oopsie, I meant Christian. And I also don't call my girlfriends or my wife's dudes' names and then correct them the same dude's name, which is Michael. Adolf Hitler worked really hard to hide his origins. He went back to Austria and got rid of a bunch of his birth records and the fact that maybe his grandmother was Jewish. Okay. So when Barack Obama got in, and they found out, we're not sure where this guy's even born. Looks like his father's some Indonesian guy, which his mother was at some Indonesian cult with this sex cult with this guy. I mean, what's crazy is his mother was a soft porn model that posed to raise money for a communist party through the Frank Marshall Davis Fund, a dude who was like completely against America, full-blown communist. So she is very suspect as well. And all of this, all these little triggers, the reason why I'm mentioning this is not necessarily to pick on Barack Obama, but to tell you this is what starts tripping the little caution tape inside the minds of an NSA/military organization. Their job is to protect the United States of America. And I keep forgetting to mention this analogy. It's from a fictional character. If any of you have seen the very first Christopher Reeve Superman back in the day, he is going up against Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor has an assistant, Miss Kaspbacher. I forgot this woman's name who plays her. But at one point, Lex Luthor is launching 2 nuclear missiles. One's going to hit the East Coast and one's going to hit the West Coast. The East Coast one, I think, is just sheer carnage in a populated area, and the other one's going to hit the San Andreas Fault in California and cause a massive earthquake. And of course, Lois Lane's out there in the desert driving on top of it, right? Of course, he wants to save Lois Lane. That's his girl. But Lex Luthor has put a kryptonite chunk on a necklace around his neck, and he's sunk to the bottom of a pool. And even though he's Superman, he won't asphyxiate. He doesn't have enough energy to pull this thing off of his neck, and so he's just hobbled while these 2 nuclear missiles are going in opposite directions. And even though he's Superman, he doesn't have the speed to grab both missiles before they impact, and so he's coming out of the pool, and you know, she gets in there. He's just drowning. He's like right at the very edge, and she says, "Look, my mother lives where this first one's going. I'll take this off your neck if you go get my missile first, my mother's missile first." And so he agrees. Why not? He's got nothing else to do. And you have to watch the movie, see what happens. With the military, they are Miss Kaspbacher. The kryptonite around the neck and the Superman is a metaphor for America. America knows how to do what's right. We're raised to do what's right. This fake layer of freedom that we have because we've allowed people to erode our Constitution, our financial system, our education, aka our awareness in this universe. That's the kryptonite around our neck, killing us. All we gotta do is get this crap off. And the NSA knows if they don't take that off the neck of America, the NSA will go down as well. The military will go down. The generals will have no jobs. The soldiers will have all died in vain. If any of you watching me are soldiers, you know, I've talked to plenty of big boys in the military, and I've said it a couple times on different shows, but, you know, they've told me unequivocally, look, we've seen all your conspiracy theories. We don't know which ones to believe. But if someone tries to get rid of the Constitution of the United States, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and the rest, then all those graves all around the world will be completely moot. Everyone will have died for an absolute frivolous reason, and we can't allow that to happen. Now, we know there's plenty of wars out there that should have never been fought. The majority of the wars should have never been fought. It was all about us being lured into borrowing money to then get into debt to these cabal organizations. I know this is about JFK Jr., but what I'm talking about, if he is alive, is what he lives for. Now, there was this shot, which I'm going to show. This video, I'm going to put a lot of photos in. I just have to. It really slows down editing, but I have to do it. There's a shot at the military base where Fort Knox is located. Fort Knox, most of you know, is the location that when Shilly Theodore Roosevelt banned the ownership of gold by like 1934, it was all shipped to Fort Knox, and Fort Knox is right next to a military or railroad track, on a military base. And so it was protected by a military base. It had easy in and out access. And for about 20 years or so, I think the gold was really there. But by 1954, when people would go in and try to look at it, one, they hadn't audited it. According to Ron Paul, I think the last time he said that the Fort Knox was physically audited was 1952. So maybe plus or minus 2 years on that, 52 to 54. The word came back that it looked like painted tungsten. And I didn't know what tungsten was until I looked it up. And it's really kind of an overly orangey yellow bar. It looks silly. It doesn't look like gold if you really know what gold looks like. Now, if you look up the history books on Fort Knox, I want to make sure you guys follow this rabbit hole because it will blow your fucking mind, okay? They tell you that Fort Knox was named after some Navy Admiral, Knox. I'm going to tell you that that's not true. There's a gentleman by the name of Philander Knox, and the first 2 letters of his name is PH. It's spelled exactly like it sounds. Philander Knox was the attorney for the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the Carnegies, and the Morgans. He was an attorney that oversaw the complete and utter domination of the railroads and all the industries that build the railroads. So you not only dominate all the railroads themselves, but you dominate the coal, the oil, the steel that builds the track, the land development, etc., etc. This guy was over everything. And by 1900, they stuck him in under, I believe, Teddy Roosevelt is when he got into the sort of the administration of the White House. And I believe that he was most likely one of the key authors of the 16th Amendment, which is sort of your byproduct of the Jekyll Island meetings. You know, Jekyll Island is typically romanticized as just the heads of state getting together and devising things. But you know these guys don't write any of their own documents, so some brainiac on the back end is going to be writing those documents. Now, something like the 16th Amendment, as I understand it, was pushed into Congress somewhere between 1894 and 1896 and was ceremoniously kicked out because people were like, what the fuck, what's this? We're not letting this happen. We're not having a national bank where we have fiat currency overseas. So related to this JFK Jr. being alive thing, to get back on point, there was a post, and I can't remember if it was 8chan or 4chan, but it was a post from a gentleman that signed it with the letter R. Now, I don't really understand why JFK would suddenly start signing with R. It doesn't make any sense to me personally. I don't know if this post is real, but it was an individual claiming to be JFK Jr., quite frankly, and it said, look, my father figured this whole thing out. And he goes down a list of things. Now, there's a bit of there's a line of interpretation in that particular post because he posts everything. You learn that the bankers were doing this and that. We all know the famous Kennedy speech where he talks about secret societies, and he literally broke down the secret societies because they knew exactly how they were infiltrating the United States of America and influencing everything. And this is a lot of stuff that's been now repeated inside the Joe M. After P organization. But in one of the lines, I think there's 2 lines that says, my father figured out what NASA was and what NASA was really doing. And then he says something to the effect of, he learned about the Greys. Now, most people interpret that as some sort of outrageous claim of NASA being involved with gray aliens. That's the way it first comes out. Now, full disclosure, for those of you who've just come to the channel, I don't have, I don't take claims of meeting aliens very lightly, and I don't take claims of meeting ghosts lightly, that kind of thing. So I'm not necessarily one of those guys, even though I have a few stories for you. Greys, Roswell, 1947. If you go and research it and cut away everything, and you just simply research the testimonies of individuals from the town who have never written a book, never sold a T-shirt, who remained in a significant amount of fear their entire lives as a result of this event, I think you will come to the conclusion that something really occurred. That there was some sort of craft, it did crash. One of them died instantaneously as a result of the damage of the injuries. One of them was dying, and one of them seemed to be perfectly fine. And that this individual and his ship and his craft were all picked up and taken to various locations. Most likely the debris was taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is where a lot of our covert military aircraft is finalized in the design, even to this day. And then it's built, fabricated, and then shipped to Area 51 for actual testing. So I don't know if the guy was talking about gray aliens, but there's a whole separate theory. The grays were not aliens at all. Grays were simply the individuals that operate inside the deep state. They're sort of this, covert group of folks. But you have a JFK Jr., which appears to have turned into an invisible. Faked his death, potentially. And he is, again, completely aware of what's going on because his family was so attacked. And so this R character posts one time and never again, as far as I know. I don't know why that would be done. I don't know why you would do that. Now, the Joe M character on Twitter, because my friend follows him very closely, he will post all kinds of bizarre things that seem off topic for what we're trying to do with this awakening. He'll chime in on the moon missions, like I did that whole episode. Did that 17 guy lie? Because he said, oh, no, we've been to the moon, and it was with the covert space program, and da-da-da. Why? I guess the rationale behind the covert moon missions really leans over to the alien conversation. It's where the moon is a big secret base for aliens, and it's an observation deck. And the backside of the moon has all this manicured contours, which John Lear follows. And of course, we did go to the moon, but we found aliens, and so we had to quickly fake it. I mean, it's just, that whole thing is to make sure that we don't follow what's really going on. That we don't know it's a fake. Why he ever said that, I don't know. We just know that the moon missions that were broadcast at us are fake. But like, for instance, he recently chimed in on the Michael Jackson Leaving Neverland series and said that Michael was always innocent and he has been attacked. Bizarre. I mean, it's not like we don't want to hear that. We all want to hear that Michael wasn't a boy toucher. I don't want to get off on too much of a bizarre thing, but this is stuff that Joe M has said, and Joe M is absolutely, positively involved with this 17 movement. Absolutely 100%. So this Fort Knox picture is taken, and it looks like, and they all stand in a queue, right? Oops, I said it. They stand in this queue, and you have a bunch of khaki soldiers on the outside and a bunch of darker uniformed military individuals in the center. But along the front lip of this picture, and we'll show it to you, you have a couple civilians in the front row, and there's some on the left side of this thing as well when you're looking straight at the picture, where they don't have any military designation. And the guy in the very, very front, when compared to pictures of JFK Jr., appears to have the exact same facial build and hairline. And we know that the Kennedys the Kennedys' bloodline should be somehow parsed in a genome project so we could get rid of all hair loss for everybody, because, my God, I think Kennedys grow more hair as they get older on their head. It's crazy. Best hairlines on planet Earth. So, of course, this guy kept all of his hair, and he has a great widow's peak down the middle. It's extremely convincing that could be JFK Jr. And they don't, he's kind of, everyone's staring straight ahead. No one's staring at the camera as far as I understand. And he's not wearing sunglasses too, which helps sort of look at the bridge of his nose and what have you. Now, the other interesting concept is that this dude would be alive, and that just like all conspiracies where you have a resistance against the conspiracy, one of the low-hanging fruit methods of resisting a conspiracy is to say that a bunch of people have been holding this conspiracy in their heart, the lie of it, and that they would normally eventually have a breaking point and confess. Okay. Well, I would assume that if JFK Jr. went underground in 1999 to save his own life from a hit from the Clinton family, that's the theory anyway, that he wouldn't have come out until just recently. And because he was a friend of Donald Trump. I mean, he was a really close friend of Donald Trump. There's plenty of pictures of them together. I think it's been claimed that one of the final photographs of JFK Jr. was at a dinner with Donald Trump. You can get the picture really easily online. Again, Donald Trump has always been consistent with his mantra of, look, I don't really want to run for president. I like my life. I like being a billionaire, sleeping with supermodels, having amazing children. And he likes building. He just loves what he does. I mean, if he didn't, he wouldn't be who he was. But for some reason, he shows up about, I think, 2010, and he's going after Obama's birth certificate issue. And I probably have that date wrong, but I think by 2012 or 2014 or something like that, when Obama drops his fake birth certificate, which is a layered PDF from the White House, which everyone has a copy of on their hard drive now, we know it's fake. But on the same exact day that Obama confirmed that he is a liar and that his origins are completely fucking unknown because his birth certificate is forged from another guy's birth certificate, which the Italian forensics division of the country proved. Again, this Italian forensics team found the original birth certificate and proved that 76% of every pixel in Obama's official submitted birth certificate to the public has been lifted off this other guy's birth certificate. And just every single thing that needed to change to make it a new birth certificate, that's the only stuff that varies from this 76% of the original. So we get the proof that this guy is a fraud, and Donald Trump pulls out that day and never talks about it again. For some of us, it was like, what? What the hell? Donald Trump, you've got the proof that you were right. Go to the next, shift into fifth. Let's go. And as soon as you get it, 6, we put him in jail. And he is erased from the history books. So he pulls out for some reason. Well, the whole thing about the JFK Jr. 17 movement is that Donald Trump was approached by the military on the side, and they just said, okay, forget about this birth certificate thing for now. I know you hate the guy, and I know you love America, and you know this guy's a Arab Brotherhood, deep stater, Muslim, who wants to erase Christianity, wants to erase the Constitution, wants to sell America straight back to its owners in their mind, right? The European banking cartel or even the Saudis. Again, Saudi Arabia has been cleaned up by the new crown prince, who I believe has been framed by his brother for the death of this journalist in Turkey. Don't be fooled. But he pulls out, and then what happens? The dude runs for president, and the dude wins. What was going on the night of the election? You all remember. Hillary Clinton has a 99.9% chance of winning. Remember the Young Turks? Oh, that was a beautiful night. Absolutely melting down on live internet streaming. It was beautiful. All these crying snowflakes, all of these news organizations, including Fox. I can't believe this is happening. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like it was a bad thing for Fox to have a Republican president. They had been told Hillary was going to win. And so they're sitting there crapping pineapples because they're like, oh my God, what's changing here? Because we know that we are always told who's going to win, and that person always wins, and now our information is wrong. So these journalists, they're all mockingbird journalists, every fucking one of them, okay? Now their masters have lost control. Ooh. And all these issues that presidents always run on during their campaign and always renege on, well, this president has delivered on every possible thing he could deliver on between the day he got pulled into office and today. Huge list still left. Huge list. But think about all the stuff that happened. Got rid of the mandated existence tax, the Obamacare stuff. First week in office, executive order, no more penalties. You can buy it if you want to, but you don't have to. And you can't be penalized for not buying it. Beautiful. This is a gigantic list of stuff I won't go through. But we know the dude's delivering. So it goes pretty quiet all the way through 2017 until about October. And this dude, who we believe had been posting since June, finally gave himself a handle, which is the letter 17. And he's outrageous from the very first post. He says that the Hillary Clinton will be arrested in a week. And then she starts having appearance anomalies. She starts kind of not showing up as much. And then her and Obama at one point have a foot brace on. Both of them took a spill. Must have been on the same ski trip and bumped into each other. Well, if you had to hide an ankle bracelet, a GPS ankle bracelet, where would you put it? Underneath some sort of faux medical condition. Hillary, obviously was having some serious medical issues before the election was even finished. Looks like she absolutely collapsed on September 11th, 2016. Like I've said several times, the rumor inside was that she absolutely passed away and was put inside that ambulance and defibrillated, brought back to life, taken to her daughter's house. Supposedly she lost all bodily functions, and then they send out the actress to pretend to be her out front of that news conference. What a hilarious trick that was. The body double was much heavier than Hillary, if you can believe that's possible. And, wore these weird kind of John Lennon glasses and kind of smiled most of the time and just talked a little bit. And then, given the impression, and she was out there by herself too. I think that was funny. If Hillary's out there, she's got a Secret Service detail around her and a bunch of people around her. I don't remember that being the way that little news conference was orchestrated. But if it's just a little doppelganger model, who cares? No one's going to kill her because they know it's not her. Or if they do, who cares? According to those people, right? So this Fusca guy keeps appearing. And he does appear to change in appearance. There's also other appearances where Fusca's on stage. The guy that looks nothing like JFK. But the wife's up there. The best friend's up there. The sister-in-law's up there. It appears. Even relatives of those individuals. This mysterious girl, it looks like the daughter. And then there's a guy in the audience. There's been one picture of this occurring, who kind of looks like Tommy Lee plus JFK Jr. He's thin. He's really fit. I believe it was 2018, January 16th, one of the relatives of JFK Jr. posted a picture in the New York Harbor of this event that happens, I guess, at that time of year, where everyone comes in a masquerade costume of some sort. You can come in anything you want, and they windsurf, right? So it's a surfboard with the sail on it, but you can also bring a kayak. You can bring all kinds of interesting, anything water-based. And I believe it's the brother-in-law. I don't want to get that wrong. Maybe it's a cousin. It's the relative of his. Post a picture of this guy on this windsurfing board on the anniversary of JFK Jr.'s death, and he's wearing a V for Vendetta mask. And his body type looks a lot like JFK Jr.'s body type. There are pictures from the funeral of his wife, with his wife's mother chatting to individuals at the funeral, and she is smiling and looks frozen in a laugh in one of the photographs. Now, we all react to death in a different way. But for any of you who are parents, I want you to contemplate for a split second burying one of your children. Some of you probably have had to do that. I've had some friends who have had to do that. There's nothing comical about it. There's no joke anyone can tell you at a funeral that will take the edge off of the fact that you will not see your daughter produce children, fulfill her life, figure out what goals that she might have added to her life, fulfill the goals that she had, that she communicated with you. It's a tragic situation. For some reason, her mother was able to pull out a laugh, and I would cast no dispersions on her mother's ability to deal with reality. I would think that this woman is highly intellectual, highly intelligent, and would take it to heart that this occurred. Now, some people might blow that off. I do not. But I remember when he died, there was a conspiracy that went around right after his death that one of the other things that he was going to do with his magazine, George, was that, and I would love to have someone else chime in on this that maybe have gone down the rabbit hole a little bit better. But they said that JFK had a double issue in production. I don't know if it was going to be literally the next couple of magazines, but he had a double issue that he was working on that was going to finally accuse George Herbert Walker Bush of being involved in the death of his father. I'm sure he would have to implicate a tremendous amount of other people, LBJ and maybe even Hoover. Who knows? Again, according to the mistress of LBJ, she said that J. Edgar Hoover was at the lodge the night before when they had the secret meeting and it got really hot, and LBJ came out and said, when she asked him, is everything okay? And he said, well, that'll be the last time that son of a bitch embarrasses me. He's not talking about anyone in the lounge. He's talking about the president of the United States, his running mate that took away the nomination for president. So LBJ had to go in as the vice president. So the question is, is JFK Jr. still alive? Well, no one knows except for people that are, I mean, if you knew he was alive for sure, you would be a part of the 17 group. You would. Now, the liability of him being alive goes as follows. The deep state could find him and kill him. And then they get to keep their history. There are exciting rumors out there, wishful thinking rumors, that JFK Jr. is going to resurface and tell his story. Obviously, there's a few dimensions to that. One, is it a crime to fake your death? To create a situation where the Coast Guard is used, the NTSB is used, police officers are used, racking up a gigantic bill to clean up a death that might be fake. If a body was truly pulled out of the plane and it wasn't JFK's body, then whose body was that? Did you kill someone to put it in the plane? Well, obviously not if it's JFK Jr., but where'd you get a cadaver? The other thing would be that, obviously, if they pulled a body out, and there's this photograph, I'll put it in there. I debate putting in there, but it was part of the official news, and the news wasn't censored, so hopefully we're okay if we put it in there. But you would examine the body, the dental records, the hairline, and you would know whether or not you're dealing with JFK's cadaver or not. Now, his father, who was assassinated in Dallas, there was, dozens of photographs taken of his dead body, both before the reconstruction and after the reconstruction, to hide the method of death. The actual trajectory of the shot that went over his right eye. I've seen the shot that went over the right eye, big old hole in the top of his right head, and then they came in and cut the forehead really badly. They cut it so idiotically. It's ridiculous. I guess the JFK files that were recently released, I was unaware of this, talk about the fact that he was actually shot from the overpass into his throat, that it wasn't from behind by Lee Harvey Oswald. But now, let's just say that there's some method of exonerating and not paying any penalties for faking your death. He's not going to go to jail for it. Perhaps he's pardoned by the president because there was a hit on him. If he comes out and he's faked his death, then he has to prove in a court of law that there was just cause for faking his death. We don't know if he really did fake his death. And by the way, the 17 dude said that JFK was not alive. So that's something you have to bear in mind. Again, it's such a mind fuck, the stuff that's going on, this disinformation and the regular information, which those statements, believe it or not, hurt the 17 movement more than ever. It really does hurt the movement, because if for all of these things that are said that it may turn out to be a lie and they call it disinformation, well, I mean, again, if this guy is your buddy and he's helping you, but he's lying to you at the same time, at the end of the entire movie, you have to explain why all those lies were told, and they're going to have to be damn good excuses. But again, let's just say he's exonerated from paying any penalties or going to jail. He's pardoned by the president. If he's going to come out and say, look, the reason why I faked my death was because I had reason to believe, maybe even conclusive reason, and he's going to have to present his paperwork and his intelligence that perhaps he was given by some agency that monitored such things. He's going to have to come up with paperwork to prove that potentially the Clinton family put a hit out on the guy. That's a tall order. So what is everybody in the 17 movement waiting for? Well, they're waiting for a lot of stuff, but one of the things they're waiting for, and it comes up in almost every single presidential address, is lock her up, referring to Hillary Clinton. Now, you could lock up Hillary Clinton for more than 24 reasons. Most notably, recently, is the wholesale slaughter of the United States of America, selling 24.5% of our uranium to a Canadian company that was then acquired by Vladimir Putin. All of the Hillary Foundation shenanigans of kidnapping kids in Haiti. Those 30,000 emails have a lot of bad stuff in them. A lot of bad stuff in them. Just literally making deals. You want me as the Secretary of State to approve your money transfer, to approve your weapons deal? How much money are you going to put in my foundation? You put enough money in my foundation, I'll get your deal through. And that's been going on for an extremely long time. There's a lot of rumors that Truman did that. He wouldn't pay any bills for the government until those outside corporations sent money to his Swiss bank account. It's sort of like a president getting a retirement fund, because those salaries that you make are not big enough to live on. I mean, I think the salary right now is $400,000. Trump donates every single penny to various organizations. But think about it. The guy's a billionaire. He stops making billions, and he, literally disengages from his own franchise, and now he's making $400,000 a year for 4 years, 8 years. Big deal. $1.2 million. Or excuse me, $1.6 million for one term. That's not enough. Double that. It's not enough. So you really do serve your country when you become the president of the United States. Now what do? Obama got done with his 8 years and came out, and I think he got a $40 million advance on his book. They don't care if the book sells. In my opinion, that's hush money. Bill Clinton goes to Russia. He gets $500,000 for, I think, a less than an hour speech. That's deal money, man. Now, as for the rumors that if JFK pops back up, he could run as a running mate of the President of the United States, I think that's a huge order for the minds of Americans. That could actually throw the 2020 election more than anything. But Hillary Clinton and her clan and all these deep staters would have to be arrested first, before the election. And that's going to be a pill to swallow that will be phenomenal. You could have a 50% approval rating for Trump. You could do all those arrests for very legal reasons, just, putting forth those, 60,000 indictments and stitching everything together with conclusive proof. You could have cell phone videos from Lolita Island, horrific videos from Lolita Island, and you're still going to have baby boomers out there saying it was all special effects, something of which they know nothing about, simply because they're never going to get through the Kubler-Ross phases in their lifetime. They're going to remain in anger and denial the whole time. The only negotiating they will ever do is to keep their faux reality. I think it would be highly unlikely for him to come out and run with Trump. It's too early. It's too much. It's too much for the American people to digest and trust that individual right away. Now, maybe if he came out and spent the next, let's say he came out next year, or let's advance that a little bit more. He comes out later this year. We're in the third year of the Trump administration. I don't think he can button up all of the skepticism around him before the 2020 election, and Trump's going to need to pick a partner before that time. But if he spent the next 5 years cleansing his story, we all do this huge adjustment for all these people being a Gitmo and a lot of people getting put to death because they're up on sedition charges and treason charges. And we have that time to heal, and we have that time to communicate with each other, and you know, some baby boomers are going to cry in their already very soaked towel of tears. They can make a decision of whether or not that guy could just simply run for president. He would certainly be a strong running mate in 5 years if he were to come out relatively right away. But obviously that's not going to happen because the arrests are not going to happen relatively right away. Now, I think it goes without saying, the deep state is scheming, and I hate to even say this, but we all know this is true, and this is why we have to talk about it for a split second. We know that the deep state is scheming to assassinate the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And believe me, they know it too. He knows it. The NSA knows it. The military knows it. The Secret Service know it. How the Secret Service can remain the Secret Service and protect Trump is beyond me, because they have always done what they're told, and they've always served the deep state to make sure the president doesn't say anything he's not supposed to say, be anywhere he's not supposed to be, etc., etc. So that organization, I assume, has been completely and utterly gutted. But I don't know. You know, a lot of those guys continue from one administration to the next, to the next, to the next. Maybe they're quarantined. Maybe they have never been involved with the deep state. But it seems highly unlikely that they're protecting deep state assets for, God, I don't know, 60, 70 years, and all of a sudden now they're just clean as a whistle. We know a lot of the Secret Service guys that were supposed to be protecting Kennedy when he was assassinated came out very quickly after the assassination and said, look, we were told to not ride along on the car because there are special little foot pedestals on the back of the car, and there's supposed to be two dudes on the back of that car holding on to the trunk lid, but they were told not to do it, and they just obeyed it, and that ended up resulting in the death of the president. Now, the president would have most likely have died anyway, but those Secret Service agents might have been hit by some of the rounds that are flying all over the place, and it would have interrupted this lone gunman theory, because you would have more trajectories and bodies from places that were from the front, from the side, who knows. They wanted clear shots, so that way they could claim this magic bullet theory, which is utterly ludicrous with anyone who has half a brain. Now, what I find sort of circumstantially interesting is the notion that, you know, JFK doesn't JFK is dead, okay? That the individual narrating all these Joe M videos seems to sound identical to him. That there is definitely heavy insinuation all over the internet that this guy's alive, and that he's been put behind Trump, or at least his family's been put behind Trump, his wife's been put behind Trump during these rallies. So the question remains, it looks as if they are most definitely trying to instigate this conspiracy from the 17 movement. They are. Again, you can't just, in my opinion, you can't just say, you can't just inject all this into our optics and then say he doesn't exist. And, you know, when the 17 dude said that he was dead, it's like, well, I guess in 18 years, the guy could just pass away of normal reasons, but then it would seem that it's a little bit morbid for the other family members to show up on his behalf. Now, I should say also, the very first time that Fusca showed up that I ever saw him, he was holding a pink sign that said, "Women for Donald Trump." And on that sign, he wrote "Ruby Cute" in magic marker. I mean, in like, you know, Sharpie marker. And people are like, what the hell's Ruby Cute? Well, it turns out that JFK had a cat named Ruby Cute. And so that's obviously trying to sway our minds and those, the Anons of the world, to do all that deep research to find that fact and go, oh my God, that's a JFK connection, JFK Jr connection. Now, the 17 movement, just to recap on that as it exists today, and again, almost every day of my life, I watch 17 recaps on YouTube, because when I go to my smoke lounge, they're always showing those videos. I absolutely never watch any of that in my house. I don't watch it anywhere but my smoke lounge because it's a great source and that's all I can take. A couple hours of that and I'm sort of done. One of the big giant frustrations is the time that it is taking to get to the point where these individuals can be arrested in bulk, because to arrest a few of them leaves plenty of them out in the public who can cause problems for the optics of the event, for the legal persecution of the event. And so for those of you that don't follow that movement, and I'm talking about the letter 17, for those of you who are having a problem understanding what the hell I'm saying, I'm trying to keep as many keywords out of this video as possible. The military / the President of the United States and everyone in between who is on the up and up, they're trying to get in Supreme Court judges that will rule for the Constitution of the United States in this country. People that either don't have deep state affiliation or formerly had deep state affiliation, never wanted to be a part of it, or forced into it. They're all pulled aside and they get a chance to fight for the right side, to redeem themselves, to repent within action instead of just image. There are, as of March 2019, the theory is now advancing to a level of Mueller, which I've heard pronounced Mueller. I don't know how the hell to pronounce that guy's name. I most often hear it Mueller, I believe, but anyway, that dude. And Rod Rosenstein, who has been definitely the target of many 17 posts saying he was absolutely corrupt beyond imagination, that they have actually they've always been on the 17 side / the president's side, and they are essentially becoming double agent spies for the Trump administration / the military to find all the deep staters, to uncover all of the cabal, because they've been brought in a room and said, look, we got you dead to rights. We have you dead to rights. We may not have your bosses dead to rights, but you're going to help us. And if you don't want to go to jail for the rest of your life or potentially be executed in some military tribunal, which seems a little hard to believe, that you better start coughing up the information. So that would be a beautiful, a beautiful twist in the story at the end, wouldn't it? That these individuals flip. Now, Senator Graham, he at times has been very, very slimy, it would appear, being, really good friends with Umar Abedin, the deep state Arab Brotherhood shill of the Clinton administration, and most likely the partner of Hillary Clinton at times. She was the beard for Anthony Weiner, who had his computer confiscated due to sending pictures of himself to a 15-year-old girl naked. On his computer was a folder called Insurance, and inside that folder is supposedly all kinds of heinous things involving Hillary and Umar Abedin. I don't know if that's true. It's all I can say is it's not hard to believe that could be true, but I think we all should hold back a little bit on that. But it seems like Graham turned. It seems like he turned the day after John McCain's funeral, when he was asking Kavanaugh in the Kavanaugh hearings whether or not an individual citizen, a non-military personnel citizen of the United States, could ever be tried in a military tribunal. This was recently echoed by Senator Feinstein, who, when told, yes, that is absolutely possible, seemed to stumble in her questions because she knows that she would be one of those individuals. Not a lady's in her 80s, but she's an absolutely, beyond the shadow of a doubt, an absolute bully on the Hill. And that's not uncommon. That is not uncommon. We have the whole, in Britain they call it a whip. It's what the House of Cards book, released in 1982, was all based on, was the Francis Urquhart character in the original book and the original BBC series of House of Cards that went for 3 seasons. He was a whip, and his job was to get the votes together. Like, we have to make a vote here. You can't be all over the place. And so that's what those guys do. So Pelosi's one of those. Schumer's one of those. All these people are one of those. I mean, that's just a process that takes place. It's an organic process. So I don't blame someone for trying to get their way through. I blame them for going against the Constitution of the United States. That's what I have a problem with. So do I think JFK Jr. is alive? I think that if I were to say yes, it wouldn't be based on any evidence that I've seen his face. There's a lot of composites coming out in Photoshop, and I will tell you that Photoshop could be a conclusive tool used to figure out whether or not someone's face is someone else's face, to measure all the distances between the face. But because of the little filter called distort, you hit Command T and you can hit right click it and select warp. You can move those noses and mouths wherever you want in a minuscule level, and then hit return, and then you can start matching it to anyone else's face. So because that manipulation can occur, I don't know, but the wife seems for me to be absolutely conclusive. And usually when someone like that shows up, they find the original person. They say, that's not his wife, that's this woman, her name is da-da-da-da-da, she lives with so-and-so, and she shows up, she works at this company, whatever. And no one, to my knowledge, has done that for her, or the woman that appears to look like her sister. So it would be based on the ancillary members of the family that I would think that there's a possibility he could be alive. Why 17 would say he wasn't alive, I don't know. Is that trying to kill the scent? Because lying to us, the people, doesn't make any sense, because I would assume the deep state would know whether or not the dude was alive. So you're not manipulating the deep state's opinion. You're manipulating our opinion. So I don't know. I really don't know. Would it be the best movie ever written? Yes. If this 17 thing turns out to be what it claims to be, if the arrests ever occur, if the Great Awakening prevails, if the deep state loses, if Europe is finally freed from this, if Brexit finally occurs, if all the Five Eyes have their eyes poked out, and we can re-legislate the entire world to make sure this never happens again, or if it tries to occur again, they're immediately caught. They're the one of these things is not like the other kind of formula. Then yeah, I think that would be the greatest thing that we could ever witness as citizens of this planet, and it will be one of the only times in history since man has either crawled out of the primordial ooze, exited a spaceship, or was divinely created by God, that we will have ever seen anything so miraculous and amazing, which is why, regardless if the 17 movement is a live-action role-playing exercise or real, it really doesn't matter. We need to pretend like it's real, do what we can to keep the pressure on for justice in the American way, or whatever country you live in. It's all about freedom, people. It's all about living under common law. Do no harm. It's vital. Anyway, I think that's all I've got on that subject. Hopefully you dug it. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. It's where all the feeds are: audio, video, a locked Facebook group, a Twitter page, and a Patreon account, just in case you want a tip. For all of those supporting me in any one of those genres, thank you so much. Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over and out.